Well, welcome everybody. My name is Brent Mosier, and thank you for attending today's webinar. I am the head of demand generation at OpsMx. Today we are presenting deploy into Kubernetes using blue-green deployment strategies on Spinnaker pipelines. Today I'm joined by my colleague Anoop. Anoop is one of our leading DevOps architects with over 12 years of experience in IT as a developer, middleware admin, Oracle DBA, and overall master of all things DevOps. Anoop is a contributor to the Spinnaker community and also has a strong experience or expertise in Kubernetes, OpenShift, OpenStack, Jenkins, Git, and Bitbucket. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, I encourage you to put them into the chat box or the Q&A section, and we'll be able to address those at the end of the webinar. You want to jump to the next slide? Here at OpsMx, our vision is to enable all enterprises to deliver software without human intervention. We believe that to help organizations modernize business applications, they need to focus on the adoption of cloud-native architecture, modernize continuous delivery, and automate infrastructures. Today's webinar, Anoop will introduce all of you to our intelligent software platform, which combines two powerful tools, continuous delivery module and our delivery intelligence module. I'll discuss a little bit about that in a minute, but right now I'm going to run our first poll so that we can kind of get a better understanding of our audience and what you guys are here to learn. So we'll run this poll for just about a second, well, more than a second, about a minute or two. So feel free to fill in the poll for us. It really helps us better understand our audience and how we can better suit the storytelling. Oh, good afternoon, Ahmed from Egypt. That sounds exciting. All right, we're going to give it just about another second here so everybody can get an opportunity in. All right, we're going to end this poll and we're going to jump over to the next slide now. So if you want to jump all the way through this, Anoop, thank you. Our technology platform is called ISD's, our Intelligent Software Delivery, or ISD, is a modern continuous delivery platform where we simplify building and managing of pipelines to minimize the overhead architecture, integration, and governance. We have two modules, and the first one is our continuous delivery module, which simplifies orchestrating the end-to-end process workflow from code, check-in, to safe multi-cloud deployments, increase productivity efficiencies within your DevOps team. With automated multi-cloud deployments, there is no need for scripting, and deployments are made repeatable, progressive, and safe deployment strategies. Native architecture for deploying applications to major cloud providers such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, as well as Kubernetes. With our automated workflow, we set up the entire CI/CD pipeline workflow in minutes, empowering the developers to deploy applications through easy to create pipelines without scripts. Managing pipelines as code to create builds, run tests, deploy code with audit and audit trails. With real-time insights, we support real-time workflows, deployment, pipeline executions, traceability for all software delivery elements, including what is getting delivered, who approves it, and the releases, and who has approved those releases. Our pluggable layer is really the power of our tool. ISD supports over 40 plus integration with various tools that cover every single stage of the development pipeline, no matter what your team is working. It supports communications tools like Slack and Google Communications Suite, Git-based repositories like GitHub, CI tools like Jenkins, ticketing systems like Jira, so that all your tools can be in one place, and it's very easy to plug in ISD without a lot of rip and replace. This tool will help your organization see the whole health of their pipelines and how it's working. Our other module is delivery intelligence. This is an insightful, data-driven, automated risk verification, automated security checks, and policy enforcement. We also have automated approvals to ensure quality, risk-free, and compliance of software in production. You can see that we have a couple of different segments within our delivery intelligence modules, such as automated approvals, like I said, automated policy and governance, security intelligence to automate and help within your DevSec secure issues, and also continuous verification to reduce the failures by continuously assessing deployments through test, staging, and production environments. Now that's enough from me. I'm going to pass this over to Anoop and let him show you how our version of Spinnaker, our enhanced version of Spinnaker, can really help your organization not only easily deploy the blue-green technology, but be successful in your organization. So with that, Anoop.
Thank you, Brent. That was a good quick intro. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone joining in today's session. So, without any further delay, I'll quickly jump into the discussion. So, we are practicing. Most of the enterprises today are practicing, multiple deployment strategies across globe, but at OpsMx, how are we practicing blue-green deployments, and how efficiently is it happening? So basically, one of our major thought processes, So we have, usually each and every team have their own methods of implementing CI/CD strategies. By using tools like Jenkins, Argo CD, so on and so forth. So here at OpsMx, we have we basically have are utilizing Spinnaker along with our in-house development, our in-house developed tools. Which is like Brent said before, the intelligent software delivery platform, and using which we carry out the blue-green deployment strategies along with application and the application that you are deploying. We are also carrying out the log analysis and the metric analysis of the application using our AI-based tool, which we call it as Autopilot. So a quick introduction about Spinnaker for some of who's new to Spinnaker. So Spinnaker is an open source multi-cloud delivery tool, which we are using as a CD layer to promote most of our deployments into multi-cloud platforms. Let it be like AWS, GCP, Azure, Kubernetes. So any platform, we can develop a pipeline on the go, and we can promote deployments into any of these platforms. And using Spinnaker, one of the major advantage is you have a high velocity of deployment, and your deployment will go on in a very safe and a confident approach. And the primary core features of Spinnaker, consists of application management and application deployment, which handles, in the application management, you can look at your deployed resources, configure the deployed resources, delete or disable the resources that you have deployed, update your security groups of your cloud, edit or update load balancers or create load balancers, as a matter of fact. So everything can managed in one single UI instead of going to AWS console, create a load balancer, assign it to your application, create a security group, or create a security group, assign it to your application. Instead of juggling around multiple UIs, you can just integrate or plug in your AWS with Spinnaker, and then handle most of your deployments on the go. And speaking of application deployments, this basically handles the creation of a pipeline, managing your end-to-end pipeline details, creating an entire, designing an entire workflow of your pipeline, a delivery pipeline itself, and promote the deployments into multi-cloud platforms. managing an automated release, which basically includes, trigger-based pipelines. You can trigger on a code commit. You can trigger based on your Jenkins jobs. You can trigger based on Docker push. Any image that is being pushed into your Docker repository, you can trigger that and push it accordingly. And built-in deployment strategies. That is one of the best thing. We are speaking of blue-green today. And in Spinnaker's terminology, blue-green is an inbuilt deployment strategy, which is called as red-black strategy, which can, the usual terms, if we are going, for example, for instance, if you are going through a blue-green deployment using a Jenkins job per se, you will have to write a manual script in order to disable your clusters for traffic shaping, be it a load balancer based traffic shaping or a Istio service mesh, so on and so forth. You manage any kind of traffic shaping. You might have to manage multiple scripts so that your entire software delivery lifecycle, start from dev to production, can promote further. Whereas speaking of Spinnaker, it's all on a single click of a button. You just click add stages, update your manifest. All you'll have to do is, instead of writing a huge script, you just define manifest of your microservices, put it and promote it to deployments. So, and we'll be able to do, we have multiple capabilities. We can do blue-green deployments. Like I see a question here asking what are the different tools that we can utilize to handle the blue-green deployment itself. We can use multiple. There is load balancer by default, which handles, based on the listener configurations that you're using. There is ingress. You can promote ingress rules, and you can do the traffic shaping according to the code compatibilities. If you have a V1 and V2 deployed in parallel, you can do the traffic shaping based on an ingress rules. If not, you have the service mesh tools anyways. There is Istio, there is AppMesh. We can go ahead, put the tools, put it part of it, and make it as part of your microservice, as part of your manifest, and put it in the rules. And that's it. On the go, you can just go ahead and do the traffic shaping. And the best part is, you can periodically increase the traffic shape of your deployment from V1 to V2. And then over a period of time, you can completely transition the deployment, or at any point in time, if you feel that you wanted to scale it back, you can scale back on a single click of a button. Everything gets back. And all of this can go without any, or with minimal human intervention, and with zero downtime of your production environment itself, right? So this is a simple structure of how a continuous delivery pipeline can be built using ISD. And Spinnaker comes as a package along with the ISD that we are delivering at OpsMx. So you can plug in any kind of tools that you want. You have a GitHub trigger which will trigger the pipeline. We can trigger that. We can add SonarQube for your code validation. We can add Jenkins, for your build, for handling your build of your deployments. We can add Selenium so that your code testing will be taken care during the deployment process, during the periodical traffic transition from V1 to V2. And over a period of time, we can finally transition the end-to-end traffic from V1 to V2 and promote the deployment to production. So, assuming most of you are already using blue-green deployments, so what is blue-green deployment actually? We all know there are multiple deployment strategies applied by individual enterprises, like start from basic deployment. I myself, I have been using rolling deployments in the past. There is canary deployments, there is blue-green deployments, and this keeps going. There is A/B testing, which can go in parallel. So the list keeps on growing according to the requirements. We can we can, according to the requirements, we can keep changing the deployment strategies accordingly. But out of all this, why explicitly and what kind of value add explicitly can blue green add? So one thing is, like I said, maintenance of the end-to-end workflow of your pipeline is pretty simple, because building a pipeline, it's all, based on the traffic shaping rules, based on the load balancer rules, or the service mesh rules, whatever we want. We built a pipeline based on that. And the next part is coming to the downtime. When we are doing a rollout deployment or a basic deployment, there is always a major risk of keeping the environment, because there is a maintenance window. Based on the maintenance window, we'll have to promote the deployments accordingly. So there's always a risk of a huge downtime available over there. When coming to blue green, it's either a couple of minutes. In my use case, the maximum downtime that I had so far, I have about 33 microservices that I deploy with my application, and the maximum downtime that I have is about 2.5 minutes. And that is also not for, users will not see a major difference, because my UI will be functioning as expected, but the rest of the services will be rolling out based on the testing outputs and everything. So that is the maximum worst case scenario. But on a normal scenario, my downtime was 0%. It's just on a click of a button, the entire testing went through, and my deployments were promoted to production on the go. And these are few things, like I said, zero downtime, so on and so forth. The simplified, the pipeline is, the end-to-end pipeline is simple to manage by any user. If the user doesn't have any experience, also it's based on the knowledge transfer and everything, one can manage it as simple as, on a click of a button, we'll be able to manage the pipeline. But what is the actual value add that has been provided by the by Spinnaker when you are trying to implement your blue-green deployments from using Spinnaker? That is, with ISD, with Spinnaker, with ISD, basically, we not only carry out your deployments, but also we try to provide the analysis of your deployments, of your application. Let it be it metric analysis, be it log analysis. We carry out the baseline and canary analysis. Canary is the, I hope the latest version, and baseline is already the one that's already deployed on production. So we carry out the analysis of your metrics and logs with our autopilot, which is an AI-based tool, and then we can manage the traffic shaping, push the loads based on the rules that you have provided, and promote the deployment to production. And what are the major prerequisites for one to be able to achieve a blue-green deployment, and what are the pros and cons for us to be able to meet and actually make sure this is working out? So the prerequisites is like the question that I see from Nagaprasad. One of the main prerequisites is, yes, we will have to have two identical environments of your production. One is already being used by the end users, and the other one is for developers to make sure the newer version of code is actually compatible with the existing version of production that is already available. And because both of them will be running at the same time, the development team, like I said, must always ensure that the code can coexist with the older version of code. And for the traffic shaping process and everything, either a load balancer or a router is also required, so that users can just notice a switch from the newer version to the from the older version to the newer version, instead of noticing a huge downtime and then moving the latest version accordingly. And the last one that I call a major prerequisite is to ensure if there are if you have any databases with your deployments, it is always good to ensure that the database must be n+1 compatible, so that we can always make sure the right set of data will be pushed into the database, and the current set of load or the application functionalities, nothing is broken, so that the end user will not face any issues. Now, speaking of the benefits and the disadvantages. So since I've been bragging about it since the starting, the major pro that I see is zero downtime. Because like I mentioned in the prerequisites, users will most of the times just notice a switch from the older to latest version, but they'll not see a huge downtime or anything. And the next thing is rolling back your deployments. So the capacity, the tool itself has the capacity to roll back the deployments in case if there are any negative consequences, like some of your tests failed, so on and so forth. It can roll back with a simple approval, or with a simple, let's say you have included some of your automated test cases as part of your pipeline. We can pass some precondition expressions that if the test case is successful, or if you have some threshold limit of your canary baseline analysis, or so on and so forth. Based on that, we can provide some precondition expressions. Based on those expressions, the pipeline will be promoted accordingly. And also, this is something that I've been saying all this time. There is no need to wait for a maintenance windows to be open. It is just like a simple switch that happens from the older to latest version. And in the coming to the testing passes, the test cases, successful of test cases and everything, we can always ensure whatever test cases you have, we can always ensure the latest versions are accurately tested by integrating your testing tools, or by putting your test cases. If you have a script, if you have a Python based script or anything, we can just put it as part of the pipeline, and the pipeline will take care of executing your end-to-end testing and take it forward accordingly. Now, speaking about the challenges, basically the cons, one thing is, yes, absolutely, this is a high cost. It is not that pocket friendly per se, because you will obviously have to maintain two environments in parallel in order to maintain stability in your code, in order to maintain the testing use cases of your because we cannot perform the end-to-end testing on the production environment itself. It's always a best practice. We replicate a production environment and then maintain or do the end-to-end testing at this place. So that's one of the major thing. But yeah, it's again based on your requirements. Now, the second one is, there are always chances of code compatibility issues, because you will be running two versions of applications in parallel. So let's say on the dev you're running a v2 version, and on the so on your pre-prod per se you're running a v2 version, and on your actual production you're running a v1. So there is always obviously a code compatibility issues as you go ahead and promote the deployment to production. And the last but not least, if the new version includes database dependencies, it will be difficult, to integrate or to migrate the databases. So for this, it is always better for a user to make sure. So with Spinnaker, we have simplified this, because we are creating custom stages. So right now I have Postgres and MySQL databases being utilized for my own application. So at any point in time, during an upgrade, during a migration, if I have any changes in the databases, all my database scripts gets into the pipeline and we execute it, and it will all be going on the go in parallel as the deployment is proceeding further. So this is a challenge that is usually been noticed in most of the use cases, but does it mean it is a challenge with me? Absolutely no, because I have designed it in a way which it supports for my application, so that my ISD, my intelligent software delivery along with Spinnaker, I will be able to handle end-to-end life cycle without any issues or complexities in that manner. And I'm also carrying forward analysis, test cases, everything is done in one single pipeline for me. So without any further delays, I'll quickly move into a demo where I'll showcase a sample pipeline that I've created for today's session. So, right. So this is a pipeline that I've created. I mean, just for demo purpose, I've kept it as simple as I can, and this is an end-to-end pipeline that I created. And in this pipeline, what I'm doing is I'm first trying to replicate the production environment. Entirely, I'm deploying this in a Kubernetes cluster. I'm first trying to replicate my production, and then validate that the production works intact. So this current deployment is entirely based on ingress. I am attaching an ingress to the deployment, and while accessing the application, this entire process, I will be accessing it using the ingress. I'll access the application, and then I'll make sure everything is working as expected. So when I execute this pipeline, as soon as I execute this pipeline, it should be, the initial step is it should be passing the traffic to the blue, which is the production replica. And once that is done, you will be able to see the entire pipeline status here. Because we are providing the YAML of your deployment, you will see the service that is getting created, where the service along with the port that is being there and everything, and the ingress rules with which I'll be accessing my application. So this will be my ingress that I'll access the application with, and obviously the deployment.yaml. So right now, if you look at the pipeline, currently I have provided this YAML as a plain text. But does it mean that as we are building a production grade pipeline, we should only provide it as a plain text? Absolutely no. You can always pick your artifacts from your own repositories. It can be a Bitbucket repository, or it can be your own Helm chart that you are using. You can go ahead, pick your Helm chart. You can list all the Helm chart versions over here. All of this is pluggable. You can plug in anything. Let it be an XS repository, a JFrog repository, or you're checking in your Helm chart into your own GitHub repositories. So anything can be plugged in, and we can absolutely go ahead and promote your deployments accordingly, right? So now that my blue version is deployed, you see here it is waiting for me to approve. Like I said, I've just kept this pipeline as simple as I can. So it's waiting for me to approve. Once I approve, it will deploy my green, and then there is an immediate traffic redirection where I'm redirecting 30% of my traffic from a blue to the latest version, right? So if I access this ingress right now, like I said, it's just a simple Nginx deployment. So I just see the blue. If I refresh multiple times, it's not gonna go anywhere. It's just gonna go stick onto that. And as soon as I accept this and continue, it's quickly gonna promote to the green deploy, which will again, deploy it into your Kubernetes cluster. And then on a periodical basis, the end-to-end traffic redirection comes into picture. So the first thing is 30% traffic, which goes on. So as the 30% traffic is done, it will again test the 30% traffic. So you should be able to see a run job that is getting executed, and it will have it's just a simple run job. I'm just doing a curl and making sure the application is accessible. Nothing perfect over there, but eventually, similarly, you can put your run job as uh, a Selenium test case. You can put it as a run job, or if you have a shell script itself, or if you have a test case as a Python script, you can create it as a run job and put it as part of your pipeline. So now that my 30% traffic is done, upon refresh, I should be able to see pages changing around. So there you go. Majority of the time, you will notice blue staying by, because I still have the baseline on a higher percentage, where it is about 70% traffic going to my baseline, and only 30% I'm pushing to my canary version of code. So in between of these deployments, now that I'm deploying a baseline and a canary, so during this test traffic, right now I've just put a simple run job. Similarly, we can add a canary analysis, an end-to-end canary analysis process, an end-to-end test cases, a regression test cases, anything that you have in place, we can put it and we can take it forward accordingly. And if I accept it further, it will now go to 50% traffic, and then periodically it will go on. So again, you might come up with this question: if you want to roll back at, let's say, at 50% traffic, if I want to roll back the deployment, how exactly does your tool understand how to roll back? Like you see here, for every approval, there is a manual judgment, which has judgment rules that are provided here. Similarly, for every redirect, there is a manifest for the traffic redirection, and there is a conditional expressions. So if I accept the deployment, it will promote the deployment, or it will redirect the traffic for the next level. If I reject it, it will immediately roll back the deployment. There will not be any other considerations. It will just go ahead. In a usual use case, you either will have to redirect the a cluster, or you'll have to redirect the traffic manually and everything. Right now, I'll not have to do anything. All I do is, just delete the thing, whichever has the, the label with the green release as in the microservice. It will just go ahead and get rid of them, and obviously all the traffic will roll back to the baseline that is already on the production, which has gone live. So it's not going to go any forward until I'm approving this. So as soon as I accept it, it's going to go redirect the 100% traffic to green. So at this point, if I see, my traffic will only be going to green, and there is no way it will be rolling back to the there is no way I'll be able to see the older version, basically the baseline version. So now let's say some user reported saying that, hey, look, you know what, my testing failed, so you will have to roll back the deployment. At this use case, because I have all the stages, including the rollback in one single pipeline right now. So every time I want to roll back, either I'll have to manually go ahead and destroy them, or else, I'll have to rerun the rollback job independently, because I have created a parallel, I have created a pipeline with stages in series. Similarly, in ISD, we can create a pipeline. Basically, we can create nested pipelines, wherein you can trigger pipeline A from, pipeline B from pipeline A. If pipeline B has any dependencies, if pipeline A has any dependencies on pipeline B, As soon as you execute the deploy green ingress, or if you click on rollback independently, you can you can do the rollback independently, or you can attach the rollback to the same pipeline. Because in the configure, on a click of a button, you can add stages. So you can run one pipeline, a different pipeline from this pipeline. So let's say I have sample app, and in this I want to run, a run job create artifact. I just add this, whatever, pipeline parameters that I have, I just put it as part of this, and I just execute it. Everything will go ahead and be executed on the go in a single click of a button. We do not have to have multiple scripts to be written in order to create a pipeline. We do not have to have multiple users in order to monitor the pipeline. You can actually trigger notifications to the entire set of group to whom you want to trigger the alerts. This can be a Slack notification, an email notification, an SMS notification, as simple as an SMS notification. Anything can be set through, and accordingly the notifications will be generated and it will be shown for users, for respective users, according to the requirements. So at the end of the pipeline, as soon as if I accept this right now, my traffic will just remain in the green forever, and until the next deployment, it will just remain in the newer version. Otherwise, if I just roll back at this point in time, let's say I just reject and continue, it's gonna continue with the next stages where it'll roll back the green deployment, and then it'll end the pipeline. So as soon as the rollback is done, if you just go ahead and access the URL once again, the entire traffic is gone. It's all back to the baseline version, which is already live on production. So building a pipeline using IST, it's actually pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Any user who's new to DevOps, any user who's just getting adapted to the thought process of CI/CD can play around, add stages. There are multiple stages available by default, and if you want to manage your infrastructure using IST, you can run your Terraform jobs. Does it mean that using the open source Spinnaker we can run the Terraform jobs? No, these are the custom stages that my team are actually contributing in order to put them across. So you can comment to your Jiras, you can deploy Terraform jobs, you can create a Jira issue on the pipeline. Similarly, if you're using any other tools like a ServiceNow or a Service Desk or anything, so all of these can be integrated, and we can put it as part of your pipeline, and we can take your deployments forward accordingly. So, and yeah. So with this, I think I'm done with the demo part. I think I have already shown, most of the stages. These are the stages that I am currently applying on my blue-green strategy. What I'm using right now is a simple ingress. You can also use a load balancer. You can use, Istio and route traffics to your load balancers using Istio or AppMesh or anything. And you can switch traffic from blue to green, like I said, either with one of the tools, directly using a load balancer by creating multiple listeners in a load balancer. Otherwise, you can always use ingress rules at the back end by attaching labels like what I did right now. So I am attaching newer versions, and as the newer version comes, the label will be taken forward. And then, the latest version of application, traffic will be redirected to the latest version of application. And speaking of monitoring, I'm doing smoke tests using the jobs that I have right now, which are JMeter based. And I am also doing canary and baseline analysis using Autopilot. I am currently integrating Elasticsearch for my log analysis and Prometheus for my metric analysis. I'm capturing all the data and will be showcasing on the same UI over here. Rollbacks, like you see, it's just at a click of a button. We can roll back any number of deployments. Let it be a substantial, let's say you are trying to deploy about 10 to 15 microservices or 50 to 100 microservices at the same time. We can roll back all of them together at a single click of a button. It's not at all a problem. And this is just the pipeline that I've shown you right now, an end-to-end pipeline, which will be available as part of this PDF, this PPT, which will be shared to you, and you can go through this and always reach out to me in case of any questions. So with this, I think I'm open for Q&A right now.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Anoop. That was actually very informative, and we got a lot of questions and interactions during the presentation. So I'm going to do a couple of things really quick. Everybody who's on the webinar will get a record or get a copy of this deck along with the recording. In this deck, you'll see here's a link for our open source SaaS trial, or not open source, our free SaaS trial of ISD, which will allow you to actually go in and play and do some of the things that Anoop was doing. You can do it within your own instance. So it's a great opportunity for people to try and see how this works for them. Before we get into the Q&A, I'm actually going to do another poll here. We always like to do a poll at the end, kind of just a quick follow-up. So we're going to run this poll here for a second, and then we'll get into some of the Q&A that we have. So just take a few minutes to answer these questions for us and be very helpful. And once again, everybody on the webinar will get an email shortly with a copy of the recording and also the presentation deck, so you guys can have all of that. So just one more second, and I will close the poll. Thank you, everybody, for participating. All right, let's get into those questions. So there's kind of been a chat going on a little bit with one of our attendees that I'm going to kind of break down his questions into a couple of different questions for you, Anoop. So this one's specifically around, what makes blue-green deployment a little bit different, and why is it better than other models of deployment? You kind of talked about that, but I wanted to ask that question first.
Yeah. I mean, one of the major things is, there are other deployments like rolling deployments, A/B testing deployment strategies, so on and so forth. But in a blue-green deployment strategy, we can put in all together at one single place, like the pipeline that I'm using on my production environment right now. I'm creating Jira tickets in the same pipeline, and my traffic shaping is going on a periodical basis. And during this traffic shaping is happening, there are multiple cycles of testing running, end-to-end application testing and canary analysis. So all of these are going in parallel, so that at the end, one user will get to validate the end-to-end cycle. And once everything is done, once the validation is done, then user will get to look at the data in detail. Then we'll be able to, when I say in detail, there is a option in the UI where you get to look at the Jira tickets, the Sonar Cube validation parts and everything, where you'll have the access to the end-to-end life cycle of your pipeline, and accordingly you can promote your deployment into production confidently, because all the checkboxes are checked as part of your deployment promotion report. So that's one of the main reason blue-green is the safest approach, because you can apply all the multiple deployment strategies in one single model and push your deployments accordingly.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Another question that came from the same person that kind of goes off of that then is, what is the point of using Spinnaker to call Jenkins if you can just use Jenkins to directly deploy the deployment?
So the point, okay, that's actually a good question. Today, if you want to, deploy any, let's say you would want to deploy, if you want to deploy a Kubernetes deployment, I mean, you can obviously use Jenkins, but one thing is to deploy that, you will have to you'll have to write a big Groovy script in order to do an end-to-end deployment process, fetch the manifest from your source code management, and then deploy it accordingly. And this fetching again needs, you will have to put your credentials as part of your Jenkins job and go through all of this process. Whereas in Spinnaker, I don't need any of your credentials. You store your credentials in your vault or anywhere else. I'll just configure, you just give me a repository URL, and I'll be able to take care of, rest of fetching your artifacts and taking them and moving it to the deployment process. And does it mean that you'll have to create extra scripts in order to promote your deployments? No. If you want to create deploy an EC2 instance, like let's say you have an AMI, which is already baked with your application artifacts. And if you want to deploy an EC2 instance, going with Jenkins, you will have to use, either a Terraform plan or an Ansible script, Ansible playbook or anything. Again, with Spinnaker, there is a create server group stage where you can actually add in all your attributes, find for the exact AMI that you're looking to deploy, and just go ahead and deploy. Your EC2 instance will be launched on your AWS console with the exact kind of access that you want, the firewall settings, the VPC settings, the load balancer, or the target group that you would want to point for your EC2 deployment. Everything can be done in one single click. Similarly, your ECS deployments. Today, I've just covered about, blue-green deployment strategies using for Kubernetes. I have also done, the similar kind of deployments for an ECS cluster where, I have a user who has about 100 microservices, which is being promoted to ECS deployments. And at a higher utilization, they want the microservices to be scaled to somewhere around 250 or something. And yeah, I have done it, and it's a blue-green deployment strategy. I'm using a ALB. I have multiple listeners. Based on the listeners, I'm redirecting the traffic. Again, it's all periodical basis. From 1 to 100, I'm raising the traffic periodically and redirecting the traffic. To create these kind of a deployment pipelines, it needs a lot of code base and lot of maintenance, lot of a lot of efforts and lot of knowledge transfer in case if the deployments are, in case if the pipelines are transitioning from one team to another team. With Spinnaker, because there is a UI, because you are able to see the end-to-end structure of your pipeline on the UI, the KT is minimized. All you will have to, maybe give a knowledge transfer about what kind of tools you can integrate with the tool, or what kind of integrations can be done, what kind of pipelines can be built, and done. That's it. The deployment is done as simple as that. So that's one of the main value add. I mean, I took a long time to explain, but that's a major value add that we are delivering along with Spinnaker as such. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. That was a good clarification of just how Spinnaker adds value. So then a question that kind of pivots off of that, what are the functionalities that OpsMx adds to Spinnaker that's not in just standard off-the-shelf Spinnaker?
Okay, that's again a good one. So one thing, like I said, is, in the open source Spinnaker, there are these things that you will never see, like this. Okay, yeah. So in the open source Spinnaker, there are these options that you would never see. So this is my OpsMx version of the IST, the intelligent software layer that we are developing at OpsMx. So Spinnaker has only certain integrations that are certified, that you can integrate with the platform and that you can promote your deployments with. Whereas with IST, we are actually providing like 40 plus integrations where you can track your deployments, everything that is available in the market, almost the best of the tools that's available in the market. There is Jira, ServiceNow, Jenkins, Bamboo CI. If you want anything else, obviously we can customize it because there is a custom plugin. If you are using any tool that is newly introduced into the market, there is a custom plugin. If the tool has an API, we can integrate the API, and over a period of time, we can put it in general in the product itself. And similarly, there are monitoring tools, App Dynamics. There's a huge list of monitoring tools, notifications, policy. You can, if you have a policy engine already installed or set up on your environment, we can integrate that policy engine and we can adapt these policies as part of your pipelines. If you have a blackout window during which you do not want to deploy your promotions, integrate the pipeline to your, that policy to your pipeline. Or if you have any other, dependencies, like without a sonar cube scanning, you do not want to promote a deployment. There you go. You can just go to the compliance page, policy management, add any type of policy that we want, and we are good to go. So we have multiple policies that I have created for now. So there is a Jira. Okay, this is a blackout window policy, and there is a sonar cube policy. So there are multiple things that I have created at this point in time. So this is basically a sonar cube policy based on this based on the code, the code validation results. If the code validation is successful, then it will go through. Otherwise, it will just terminate the deployment. And similarly, you can today we are supporting two types of policies. One is a runtime policy, which you can integrate with most of your pipelines that you're utilizing, so that it will be a runtime. Anytime your pipeline is running, the policy will be under validation. The other one is a static policy. As soon as you apply this, it will be globally applied to your platform, and users cannot make any changes until one. Basically, when I say one, that is either the admin or your compliance team. One comes in and disables the policy, or one comes in and change the policy rules. No one else can modify or do anything beyond your policy settings. And the other one is, the audit trail. You can audit your deployment process. You can look at the pipeline execution details. You basically have a visualization of everything that is happening in your deployment process. So this will help end users or management per se, if you want to share this information to your higher management. So this will help management to pick up these details and take it forward accordingly. And the other thing that I was mentioning about is the visibility itself. Okay, I think I do not have any data here. Yeah, so speaking of the visibility approval part, so that's one other thing. So you'll be able to.
I was going to say, I think that's, because we had another question that kind of, pivoted into that, and I wanted to make sure that we had time. Sorry to interrupt a little bit because we're getting kind of close to the end of the webinar. Highlighting OpsMx's solution, how it's different than out of the box Spinnaker and enhanced. What can the platform connect to for deployments? I talked a little bit about it, saying that we connect to 40 different tools, but what are the kind of deployment platforms we can share with?
So if you look at the integrations here, there are already several integrations that's listed. When looking at Artifactory, Artifacts, there is S3 Artifactory, Bitbucket, Docker, GitHub. GitLab is in progress. Soon GitLab will also be available as an artifact integration in the IST UI. And CI, there are multiple CIs. Right now there is Bamboo and Jenkins. Circle CI and everything that's also, I think it's on the roadmap. And like I said, governance, there is Jira, monitoring tools. There are a whole bunch of monitoring tools. right? And there is notifications, policy, there is the scanning part for your image scanning process, code scanning process and everything. And there is autopilot, which handles your verification of your when I say verification, in my use case, it handles my metric analysis, log analysis of my application deployments and everything. So yes, these are the few things that I could immediately think of.
Awesome. Well, we're kind of running out of time. There's been a couple of questions about the winners of the gift card, and how we do is we'll send you a direct email letting you know that you were a winner. And so keep an eye out for the email coming from us shortly. And once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anup, for a great presentation. If you have any other questions, please let us know. And we hope to see you in the future at another OpsMx webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the me.